In the United States, we have a place called the Museum of Toys.
El Museo de los Juguetes en los Estados Unidos.
And a few years ago, the toy that they inducted into the Museum of Toys was a stick.
Que el año pasado, digamos, le dieron un puesto de honor en el Museo de los Juguetes a un palo.
¿Por qué? ¿Por qué? Why?
¿Por qué? Porque eso fue importante, un palo.
El palo se vuelve cualquier cosa.
They can do whatever they want with it.
Exactly. Sí, sí, es recuerdo para los niños.
Okay, so Dana and I have been working in the field of early childhood development in a wide variety of ways for, 40 years?
Yeah, we need to stop and let her.
No, I'm speaking
She's
slowly.
going to, simultaneous, okay.
But we're going to speak slowly in English.
That's it.
And as loud as possible. So, we have worked together since the 1970s.
She wants you to, Nina, they want this.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll do it. I'll get it for you.
We've worked together for a very long time, and we started working together at a time when in the United States people were just beginning to accept the idea that we should have programs to serve very young children. And we're going to talk to you a little bit how things have evolved in the United States, how funding works, how services are structured, how people have used advocacy and public policy to create more resources. And then we're going to talk a little bit about some of the principles that we've used and some of the research that we've used to do our work. And because a lot of people in the United States are not aware of all of the possible strategies and partners they can work with, we decided to write a book. And we publish, it's an ebook, so you all can download it. We'll put the link on the board before we leave. And what we said was, we took a lot of knowledge and experience from all around the country of different players, different partners, different coalitions working to improve the quality of a network of services that support kids and families. And we put it into a book. We call it the Early Childhood Playbook, as a resource for people who want to improve individual programs, community programs, state, national. So that's what we're going to talk about, but we're going to have a chance for you to talk, thank you, amongst yourselves as we do each section. So you can think about whether or not this relates to your work in Colombia or not. And we want to learn from you, too, because I live in Ecuador, Dana lives in New York. I'm just learning how things work in Colombia through my friend and colleague Pilar. But things are not the same in every country. So we hope that what we bring you is helpful. Take what works, take what can serve you, and don't worry about the rest. Dana? Oh, okay, so I'm going to start, and I'm going to talk about the landscape, what in the United States we have now. So first of all, in the United States, the way early childhood programs are funded is complicated. There is federal funding. That means the government funds some big programs and gives money to states, which are like your departments, and sometimes to communities. So there's a very famous big national program called Head Start. How many of you have heard of Head Start? Some of you, I see heads nodding. Head Start is probably one of the highest quality systems of early childhood programs, but it doesn't serve even more than 30% of the kids, 32% of eligible kids, which means that 60% of kids that could be getting Head Start aren't served, and that's just because our Congress has not given the money for that. There's also, in the federal government in the United States, a child care bureau, a federal child care bureau, and they have been able to give grants to states, to national organizations to do particular things. A lot of the money in recent years has gone for helping states create what they call in the United States quality rating systems, which is a way of, it was created as a way to improve quality and improve the status of early childhood workers. It hasn't exactly worked out right. And this is a good example of public policy, which I also wanted to share with you. So probably about 40 years ago, about the time we started, there was created a kind of organization in the United States called Child Care Resource and Referral. And what these were, every state had one, and sometimes local, and they're still all over the country, sometimes local communities had them. And what they did was they collected information about all of the available child care in their area, whether it was a state or a community, and then families could call them and say, I need child care for a 2-year-old and I live in this area, and they would give them, the families, the lists of licensed or certified or approved providers, family child care in small homes and also centers. They became part of a group of national organizations, including there's a national organization for the education of young children in the United States, and I believe they're international. I believe you could probably join. And they do a lot of stuff, but with that group and with the Child Care Resource and Referral Group, and then in many, many states and communities, there are coalitions. The reason that the public policies that exist in the United States, like funding for Head Start and funding for child care, is because these groups have done what we call advocacy, which is they've organized, they've shared information with decision makers, and they've mobilized parents to request things. It takes a long time. So I want to preface everything we say by saying it might sound really great, but we're still a work in progress. We still have a long way to go before all children receive the loving, healthy beginning that they need and deserve. So one of the things that has happened as a result, well, and in the way the funding comes down, is that it has created what we call in the United States silos. Amparo, what is the word for that in Spanish? Silos, where you have different professions separate.
It's in a farm.
So the health...
No, en inglés un silo, un sistema que es de silos, son sistemas que están totalmente separados y no interactúan entre sí.
Salud es un sistema y cuida de niños. Y educación para niños, sí, educación para niños desde 5 años hasta adolescencia es un sistema separado del sistema de preescolares. Hay fundas para child care. We have funds for child care. We have funds for pre-K, which are now preschool, which is often 3 and 4-year-olds before kindergarten. They are often now part of the public school system. And then there are a whole array of public and private programs and approaches and methods. And I think if...
You're moving too much.
I'm moving too much. One of the things that people are working on now across the country is how do we bring everyone together, because we all care about young children, we all care about strong families. How do we work together? And one of the public policy challenges is there are people who want to do that, but these separate funding streams make it very difficult. Each set of funds has a set of regulations. They have different issues about privacy, about all kinds of stuff. So that's challenging. The other thing that has resulted from the way things are funded in the United States is that children are segregated. So Head Start, in order to qualify for Head Start, you have to be very, very, very low income. And it's ironic, and it's good, that Head Start has more resources to deliver quality services. But the 60% of kids that don't get Head Start and all of the middle class families in the United States really don't get help. Rich people can pay for care, they can pay for what they need. The people in the middle, the vast majority, are just kind of out there on their own. And infants and toddlers are not being well served in the United States. Most infants and toddlers are not in programs, in formal programs. Most infants and toddlers are with family, friends, or vecinas, or neighbors, or co-workers. And they may or may not know anything about child development and how to promote health and well-being and learning and curiosity in young children. So one of our challenges now is to figure out how this totally, if you made a map of all the different programs and funding, it looks like a big bowl of spaghetti. How do we take the spaghetti and make something else out of it where we can really best use the resources and not duplicate and serve all children? One interesting point, and then I'm going to turn it over to, two things. One is that a very powerful advocacy tool emerged about 10 or 15 years ago when a whole new amount of neuroscience showed us how important early brain development is. And so the advocates all over the country have had phenomenal success because that information is so concrete. What we have found in our advocacy is when you talk about what young children need, before we had the brain development, before you could show a picture of how quickly brains are developing and how the connections are made, the words we use to describe what young children need were very, in the United States, this is an issue, very female. Loving, nurturing, caring, and it's very hard for people to know exactly what that is. When you show a group of business leaders brains that have been deprived, brains, you can actually, there are videos of brains connecting, and you explain that the first 3 years are so important, and not having all of those loving, consistent relationships can affect children's brain development. People get it like that, and so, yeah.
Come here.
Hey. Yeah.
Talking to her shoulder. There's another very subtle point. It is really about male doctors who had, sorry guys, who can explain to male business leaders that there's a science to it. This is not touchy-feely. This is not just a nice thing for kids. This is really about brains, and here's numbers and percentages and pictures that work. So this was very much, from a feminist perspective, a very important point in time.
And a strategy. And at a national level in the country, there have been some phenomenal pediatricians who have led some of that work and gone to Congress and testified. And there's a pediatrician named Jack Shonkoff, and he has a center at Harvard University. And you can find a lot of great videos and things you can share with families. Some are bilingual in Spanish and English, and he is like the top physician advocate. Thank you, Dana.
What about Heckman?
And James Heckman. She's gonna do Heckman. Yes.
Write the name of those names on the board.
Okay, Dana, it's your turn now. So now I'm going to give Dana the mic.
No, we're going to have discussion.
Oh, right. Right.
Jack Curve se llama de las neuronas a los barrios. Y él fue la primera persona que
Yeah, I will after she's done writing.
Se llama From Neurons to Neighborhoods.
Yeah, write that down. And write down, yeah. In the book, if you go online, and we're going to put the link up there, you will find all of these people that we're talking about and many, many, many more, and links to, and addresses and all that to them. Now we wanted to ask what you think. Do these things seem similar, different, anything you have questions about? How does this compare to what's going on in Colombia? I mean, I know your funding is different, for example.
We talk about now.
Uh-huh.
We are doing a research.
Can you talk loud? You need to talk louder. Sorry.
A tocar con micrófono, sí.
Uh-huh.
Now in Universidad de la Sabana, we are researching about how the different systems who work with the children can work
Together.
together.
So that is similar.
It's a concept from Matthias Urban, who is a research, él es alemán, ¿cierto? German research, who works about this concept, and we want to find some ways to para lograr
To achieve.
Yeah.
to achieve the
More collaboration and more across professions, and so that's very similar to what we're
And the word or the concept about that kind of things that Rosa will explain us. It's about competent system. That,
Yeah.
everything that you mentioned
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
About how the system could do or work correlated.
Yes.
Relationship.
Yes. It's a big challenge. Not easy. Not easy because people have their own turf. What's the word for turf? People have their own,
Cada persona son
and you know, philos. And people don't want to change unless not changing costs more than changing, which is often hard. Other thoughts about similarities or differences? Sí.
Yo voy a hablar en español.
Sí, sí.
Nosotros en Colombia tenemos, digamos, el cuidado, el desarrollo integral de la primera infancia es ley. Es una
It's
ley.
a law.
It's a law.
You're translating for her?
Entonces, nosotros hemos construido un sistema que busca que todas las entidades nacionales trabajen en pro del desarrollo de primera infancia. Entonces, esa ley convoca a 17 entidades de tanto nacionales y los entes territoriales,
Locales.
los locales,
Sí.
a que hagan inversiones en primera infancia. Está educación, está salud, está cultura, está recreación y deportes, está víctimas. Nosotros acá tenemos una unidad de víctimas. Está planeación nacional, está el Ministerio de Hacienda, que es el de La Plata, y está liderado desde la presidencia. Entonces creo que tenemos avances significativos en lograr que el desarrollo integral de primera infancia sea, digamos, sea una política y sea intersectorial, se conecten,
Excelente.
se conecten los sectores y no sean como muchos sectores. También tenemos, digamos, a raíz de la política, tenemos un sistema de información niño a niño robusto que nos ayuda a hacer el
Exactamente.
seguimiento, algunas, digamos,
Sí.
algunas cosas, indicadores que son claves y estratégicos para el desarrollo de los niños. Digamos, creo que la política, la ley se sancionó en 2016 y la política lleva ya casi 10 años. Y ahorita lo que estamos buscando es que eso continúe en infancia y en adolescencia y tener, digamos, como las mismas construcciones intersectoriales y demás. Creo que en términos presupuestales, si tú hacías un llamado, era que sí teníamos que lograr que el presupuesto fuera un poco más participativo. Hemos avanzado y digamos ya la entidad que está encargada como de cuidado, pues que en su momento fue digamos, la encargada de cuidado, que ahorita tiene unos programas de educación inicial, que es la que tiene, digamos, más presupuesto, logre que las otras entidades puedan hacer acciones desde su presupuesto. Entonces, cultura y deportes, digamos que son dos sectores que son siempre muy relegados y con muy pocos recursos, son los que han ido, digamos, apoyando y contribuyendo, y buscamos que esos niños cumplan por lo menos 12 indicadores. Los niños que están atendidos, que son cerca de la meta de este cuatrenio, son 2 millones, que esos 2 millones de niños estén atendidos, digamos, con estos 12 indicadores, tanto en el sector, tanto, digamos, en...
¿Conocen cuántos niños están en todo el país?
Sí,
¿Sí?
la cifra que nosotros tenemos son 5 millones de niños.
¿Y conocen dónde están durante el día?
Algunos están, digamos,
¿Sí?
en modalidades nuestras, que
Ajá.
son cerca de 2 millones 500 más o
Ajá.
menos. Lo que pasa es que hay unas modalidades cualificadas y otras
Ajá.
no.
Ajá.
Y el resto, digamos, sí están...
Ajá.
es un poco el mismo
Sí,
problema que tú
sí,
planteas, y
sí.
es que, digamos, clase media no tiene el acceso a este tipo de servicios, entonces, porque el foco obviamente está en los niños más vulnerables. Entonces, los servicios de clase media todavía no están regulados, pero la política sí tiene una apuesta de regular.
Sí,
digamos,
pero tal vez necesita que revisar o hacer más cosas.
Sí, creo que, como dice Angélica, en el país hemos tenido muchos avances en términos de política pública. Creo que tenemos dos desafíos muy grandes. Uno, cobertura, que todavía no es total en las más vulnerables,
Bueno.
porque las otras, digamos, clase media y clase alta de alguna manera logran responder a las necesidades de los niños. Entonces, un desafío es cobertura. El otro, que me parece muy grande y muy fuerte, es llegar a los agentes educadores. Porque burocracia.
Burocracia.
Digamos que también
Sí.
los educadores asuman la perspectiva del desarrollo integral
¿Pueden
de los
oír?
niños.
¿Pueden oír? Ok.
De la perspectiva de la integralidad en el desarrollo de los niños y no por sectores. Creo que es un camino que nos va a tomar muchos años todavía, porque tenemos que apuntarle a una formación de un agente educador de la infancia que entienda lo que implica la integralidad del desarrollo y que no se centre solamente en aspectos puntuales y que no sepa nada de los demás. Entonces, sí, como dice Angélica, hemos dado un gran paso, pero tenemos otro gran desafío.
Y momentito, but you reminded me of 3 things I forgot to say. One is that there has been maybe 20 years something that one of the foundations in the United States funds in every state, and it's called Kids Count. It's in our book, you'll be able to find the resource, and every year people in every state do some kind of a survey of where the kids are, what kind of programs they're going to, how many aren't getting served, and it's been over time, and they don't just focus on childcare, it's on child nutrition, child health, services for people with disabilities. It's a whole range of data, and we will write the link so you can look at some of the reports, and then the foundation makes a whole national report. So having that kind of information at your fingertips every year, it can be really helpful. The other 2 things I forgot to mention, and I can't imagine they won't be an issue here. One is the salary of teachers. And right now people are, some people are wanting the early childhood salaries to be at least what public school salaries are, and that's a really big issue right now. And the other issue is quality. So even if we cover all the kids, if they're in terrible programs, what are we doing with our resources? So those 2 issues are things that advocates across the country in the United States are working on. But now I'm going to turn things over to my colleague Dana, and I will keep writing things. Okay.
I just lost the time.
Gracias.
Hopefully that'll work. Okay. So you mentioned a very important word, woo, called collaboration. And we have learned in the United States that that is the only way that we're going to accomplish our goals. Some of you talked about comprehensive care. I don't know any family who has one problem. And what we do, we say, oh, you need childcare? You go over here and there's a little pot of money. You need housing? Oh, you have to go over here. Oh, you need a job training? You got to go over here. wait a minute, I now have to go to 3 different departments, 3 different sets of rules. The government policy doesn't treat families as families. And understanding what we absolutely know is that families are complicated and most of them have a number of problems. So that means not only does policy have to acknowledge that, but we're going to work on that. You keep on working on that. But in the meantime, at the community level, you can start identifying the people and the organizations that are all working with the one family and have them work together. And so that is the work that Nina and I have been doing for the last 10, 15 years. I have been working in very low-income communities in New York, and it is a struggle because there aren't many resources. That's one of the problems in poor communities. But you've got to, we know there are many people who care about children. We have to find them, and we have to say, hey, come with us and tell the government we need more money. Tell us to help families. So there's a model for this, and it's not just a, oh, let's get together and talk. There's a science to how you do collaboration. And that's what the book that Nina and I wrote is about. How you do that. What is the science of working together with groups? So the first thing to understand is this concept of the whole child, the comprehensive notion of it. And there's a professor from Cornell University. His name was Urie Bronfenbrenner. I'll write his name. Does anybody know? Yeah. I worked for Urie. I was his research assistant for 2 years at Cornell. I cannot tell you what a wonderful, wonderful human being he was. He used to ride around campus on his bicycle with his tie flying in the back. He was the absent-minded professor. His hair was crazy. He was a very, very funny man. The one thing he taught me, and I heard him say in many speeches, which I know you will all understand, he says, you know what kids need? They need one person who loves them like crazy. Yeah. He says, that's my answer to child development. You can take all the theories you want, but if you've got that kid's going to survive. So he developed, let me see if I can move this over. Okay. This is Urie Bronfenbrenner's ecological model, right? So you know this, I'm so excited. So there is the child, right? There's the immediate family, so familia. There's the neighborhood, the houses in the neighborhood, child care. Then you go to another round and you have the extended family and aunts and uncles, etc. You have community health, doctors, and it's not just the health facilities. How healthy is it to live in this community? And I know in working in poor communities in the United States, you've got garbage dumps. You've got water that's not safe. There are no safe places for children to play outside in nature. Find a stick, not safe. All of that is part of this. And then obviously friends and neighbors, and this is what Nina mentioned is where most of our babies are. They're here with friends and neighbors. Then there's the workplace. People forget that. Can a parent come and see a child perform in school at a concert or recital? Depends on my employer. Depends on if I can get time off. I worked with U.S. corporations for 20 years setting up on-site child care centers at major corporations. There's a very important role that companies can play in the services they offer, but also in how they structure the work, the flexibility that parents have, the time, etc.
Can I have one thing?
Sure.
And what we have found in public policy advocacy is that business leaders fund the politicians. So the politicians listen to their funders. So in many places around the country, people have found business leader champions who understand brain development and child development and are willing to go to their legislatures or to policymakers, and they get listened to more than us female child development advocates do in that circumstance, and they've been very powerful in a lot of places.
Great. And then, of course, around all of this, at the macro level, are our values. What do we care about? What do we believe? And the laws that you sort of put in place, you hope, that reflect the values. A very interesting value in the United States is that people are expected to, the saying goes, pull themselves up by the bootstraps, make it on their own. You have a right. You're here in the United States. You make it on your own. You find a way to succeed. I'm sorry. I don't know anybody who didn't have help succeeding. Our policies reflect that. Our policies don't help people as much as they should because there's an inherent belief that people should do it on their own. That's not reality. That's not truth. But that's somehow a value that we believe is shared in the U.S.
When I started in early childhood, I helped for my master's project to start a childhood center. And at the time, we had President Nixon, and there was a big policy law in Congress with a comprehensive child development bill. And lots of people had worked to get it there. And he vetoed it because he said it would Sovietize American families. And at that point in time, in the 70s, there was a lot of political pressure for women to stay home and take care of babies and not go to work. And that's been another push-pull in the environment is the increases in numbers of working women and people not recognizing that they need high-quality child care and wanting them to stay home and take care of babies, because really we're in an amazing social transformation right now, and I think it's all over the world, where women's work, which has traditionally been free, has to be acknowledged and given a value and paid for. And that's a huge social change, and I don't know any country that's finished doing that work. Okay.
So we take this model as the beginning place for how we think about who we can work with to get better childcare, to get more for the families and children we want to help. And one of the other things that really helped us as we tried to reach out was what Pilar talked about. It's called the Heckman Curve. And James Heckman is an economist who won a Nobel Prize for his work on job training, retraining adults. And he caught wind of, he learned about some studies, and there were 3 longitudinal studies of over 30, 40 years following children from a preschool program to adulthood. And they all found the same thing, that a young child who has a quality, that's important, a quality early childhood experience is less likely to get in trouble with the law when they're 13. They're more likely to graduate from high school. They're more likely to be married and own a home. They're more likely to have a job. They're less likely to get arrested. 3 different studies, 3 different populations, all found the same thing. So what happened was James Heckman looked at this research and said, I have another way of showing this, and it's what's called the Heckman Curve. So here is, if you invest very early, prenatal, in women who are pregnant, you will get a bigger bang for your buck, more return. You will get a more positive benefit if you invest here than if you invest in post-school and job training. So here you have a Nobel laureate economist who is talking against the very work that he got the Nobel Prize for. He said, I've been working here. I should have been working here. So there's prenatal, 0 to 3, 4 to 5 school, and you can see the return on that investment goes down. Not that it's nothing, it's very good here. You still have to do this, but you're going to get a lot more value and a lot more benefit. by investing here.
Hoy en día es muy difícil que, es raro encontrar un bebé de 0 a 5 años nacido fuera de los Estados Unidos y que fue traído. Que cosa que no está pasando en Colombia. Todos los venezolanos están llegando embarazadas, gestantes, con 2 muchachitos de menos de 5 años de la mano. Entonces, hoy en día en los Estados Unidos realmente la problemática más grande, aparte de los niños que están siendo arrestados en la frontera, son el dilema del niño inmigrante de padres indocumentados que es ciudadano americano. Entonces hay unos limbos de estatus migratorio terribles. Pero tú hablabas de la cobertura y el ICBF y digamos los programas que se han creado en Colombia. Yo trabajé el año pasado con el Ministerio, con el MEN, con Ana María Nieto, antes de que se terminara el último gobierno, para desarrollar el proyecto de ley de licenciamiento a nivel nacional. Eso es una problemática tenaz y yo aprendí mucho en esa experiencia y me di cuenta de que sí es verdad que Colombia ha hecho unas cosas increíbles en cuanto a esta columna, digamos, ¿no? Que equivale a Head Start. Pero y ustedes hablan de clase media. No, hay niños de estrato 2 que no hay suficiente cobertura y hay niños de estrato 1 y 2 que están sin ninguna cobertura, sin ninguna en programas que están totalmente abandonados, que no tienen nada. Entonces en Colombia hay un hueco muy grande entre ICBF y los estratos más altos que tienen programas muy buenos. No sé, nadie los ha evaluado, cómo sabemos la calidad, pero siento que en Colombia hay un gran abismo terrible que no se ha tratado y que son no sé cuántos miles de millones de niños hay en ese espacio. Porque ¿cuántos niños cubre el ICBF? ¿2 millones?
Tú dijiste 2 millones. 2 millones 200.
¿Y estamos hablando de 0 a 5 años? Entonces, o sea que hay 3 millones de niños. ¿Y qué sabemos de esos niños?
De esos 3 millones
Immigrants here, what she told us about the finish line.
tenemos,
I need to see.
digamos, hay programas. Lo que pasa es que el ICBF es poblacional. Entonces, el foco del ICBF es población vulnerable. El foco, en cambio, digamos, el foco de sectores como salud es universal. Entonces, en la base gigante de salud, nosotros tenemos cerca de 5 millones de niños
Que están siendo atendidos.
Que son atendidos, digamos, que son los registrados en salud y que tienen registro de nacimiento.
5 million children are registered and receiving at least health attention. Maybe not.
So I want to make another point.
Nosotros tenemos, digamos, 2 formas de más o menos dimensionar cuál es la población total. Una son los registros de niños nacidos vivos. Nosotros en Colombia tenemos cerca del 96% de los niños nacen, digamos, en un servicio de salud, independientemente de cómo sea, digamos, independientemente de si es en la ruralidad. Sí, la estadística nos dice que es cerca del 96% de los niños nacen en el sistema,
en la institución de salud están registrados
y tenemos
en un hospital.
Eso es nacido vivo. Y lo otro que tenemos, que la cobertura es más alta, es registro civil, que son cerca del 98% de los niños. Entonces, cerca del 98% de los niños cuentan con registro civil. La base grande que nosotros tenemos de niños es de cerca de 5 millones, de los cuales 2.200.000 están atendidos en el ICBF y los otros tienen una de las atenciones universales, pero todavía, digamos, al nivel de detalle.
¿Cuáles son esos 2 indicadores que mencionaste que están tratando de lograr que 2 millones de niños tengan esos 2 indicadores? ¿Cuáles son?
Son 12 indicadores.
Dice 12. Okay.
Okay, I want to say something else about how immigration is being addressed in the United States. 2 things. First is that in many places in the United States there aren't just Latino immigrants. I go to many communities and they tell me that there are 67 languages spoken in the public schools. So a lot of the institutions that should be and can be and want to serve kids are overwhelmed by having to have somebody who speaks Syrian and somebody who speaks Arabic and somebody who speaks Thai and all of those things. But the other thing that Pilar has experienced, that I have experienced, is that in the United States, in most communities, whether the leaders, regardless of the background of the leaders, there's very little consciousness and understanding about Latino families the family strengths, that people still have strong families, about knowledge, about sharing information. So I just want to tell you one little experience I had. I worked for a year with a community in Paterson, New Jersey. And they called me because the state of New Jersey has a preschool program for all children. And Latino families were not enrolling their children. And they wanted to figure out how to get more Latino, because they have a huge Latino population. So I said to them, why do you think they're not enrolling? And they said, Latinos don't want their children in childcare. And I said, who told you that? And they said it was from a university professor in international knowledge. And I said, that's baloney. That's an English word, baloney. How do you, loco.
Did you say shit?
So
Did you say that?
what we did was we had small meetings with families, with Latino families, in Spanish, and we asked them why they weren't enrolled. Some didn't know. The schools were not sending out information in Spanish. Some were afraid because they read about child abuse in centers, and their husbands didn't want their little girls to go. Some, it didn't work because it was only part-time. It was 2 hours, or it was 3 hours, and the parents had to work. So I brought this information back to the group, and they came up with other strategies. But at this, in the same work, there's also a huge Arabic population there, and they were invited to a meeting to talk about their needs. Nobody had ever spoken to them or invited them or translated anything. It was such a big event that they sent a newspaper reporter to cover that they'd been invited. And once they had the information about how to enroll their children, they could do it. This is just a tiny, tiny example, but this is happening all over the country.
También quiero aclarar que sí es cierto que hay muchos inmigrantes de muchas naciones, que los Estados Unidos realmente es un país verdaderamente multicultural, multirracial, multireligión, o sea, todo lo que ustedes se puedan imaginar, que son retos que Colombia nunca ha vivido. Ahora con la situación venezolana son retos muy grandes, pero un poco diferentes, porque finalmente los venezolanos somos racial y culturalmente casi idénticos, o sea, tenemos muchas similitudes más que diferencias, yo diría.
Y después de Dana completa vamos a discutir soluciones para este ISUE y los tres más importantes ISUEs.
Temas. Una cosa es que el 80% de los niños que lo que estamos designando en los Estados Unidos se llaman dual language learners, que son niños que están naciendo y aprendiendo 2 idiomas a la vez. Ese término se lo inventaron para que fuera algo positivo, ¿no? Niños que están aprendiendo, pero en cambio antes en la terminología eran niños que no saben inglés. Entonces, bueno, eso fue un movimiento de latinas que cambiaron esa regulación, pero el 80% de esos niños son latinos. Entonces muchas veces los políticos distraen, no, es que hay 78 idiomas en mi colegio, no puedo hacer nada.
O no saben.
Pero el 80% de esos niños hablan español. ¿Qué tal si nos dedicamos a un idioma? Entonces ese siempre ha sido, digamos, una de mis banderas, ha sido esa, pero bueno.
She had her hand up.
Puedo hablar todo el día de los inmigrantes.
I think we also have a really hard situation here because we have some families that are really poor, that they don't have money even to live, or they don't have jobs, that they have to live in the streets. They don't care about children, and they use them to get money just to have something to eat or have a place to stay one night.
This is happening where I live in Cuenca, and people rent babies.
Yeah.
They're not even necessarily their own children, and I look at these adults and the children, I think how horrible for the children to be with a stranger on the sidewalk all day.
And
So I
they
know.
need, so it's really, I think it's really important to work also with these homeless families. Maybe they're not homeless at all.
No son
Because
personas
at
que viven
night
en
they
la
have,
calle,
because at night they have
pero
a
por la
place
noche
to
tienen
stay,
donde
because
quedarse,
they receive money.
pero reciben dinero
They receive money from the people in the streets because they have their
limosna.
children, and they use their children for that. They also give some
También.
alcohol to keep them sleep.
darles de un alcohol para que se mantengan calientes.
This is really good because we're identifying
estamos identificando diferentes temas. Vamos a terminar esta parte y vamos a hablar con ustedes como
People who have kids on the street,
la gente que
immigrant
tiene niños
issues,
en la
the
calle,
venezolanos, the
los
challenges,
niños de los retos que
funding. What
traen
else
los
was mentioned? What was
venezolanos.
the other issue? You're keeping track of the issues, right?
Oh,
No.
We were talking about stakeholders, by the way.
We're
Need
gonna
to
go
make
back. We're
stakeholders.
going back to. I'm trying to.
Also,
I
some
understand.
families that are like maybe you can compare them with the urban people in the United States.
Yes.
It's not. It's different because they in the United States they have more facilities. Here they don't, but they leave their children inside a house. Just they have 4 or 5 children, and a 5-year-old has to take care of a baby, 1-year-old. Yeah, but here is so, and they put like they close the door, they get out and come
Cierran la
back at
puerta y dejan los niños encerrados
That's
en la
why I
casa.
started doing research about
Por
20
eso
years
empecé
ago
a
on what we
estudiar
call
esto,
family, friend, and neighbor care because
porque había
there's so
que
many
explotar
kids
la
are
parte
left
de
at home,
la
they're
cuidado
left
infantil de los vecinos y de los amigos, de forma mucho más.
Forget about child development. It's just-
No estamos
So,
hablando
we
ni
do have
siquiera
that
del
problem.
desarrollo
Maybe it's
infantil,
more-
sino de la seguridad.
It's all about South America.
All of
It's all about South America, especially
Son
because
casi
now we
todos
have this
Sudamérica.
Venezuelan people
Right,
crying.
right.
This is a kind of business,
Exactly.
you know, because it's about money.
Yeah.
And I'm not
Ese
sure
es
if
todo
the
la
ICBF
parte
is
económica.
covering these people. I think that someone there is telling us, but maybe when I've been told that there are some families who go there and ask for attention and they are denied just because they are not Colombian.
Que piden al niño,
So access
porque no son colombianos, se la
is
niegan.
another issue.
El acceso a los servicios.
It's so interesting to me because we have the same problems. Maybe
Tenemos
they're
los mismos
at a
problemas,
different level or they
de diferentes
look different, but we
niveles,
still have the same
diferentes,
problems.
pero
So
realmente son
back to
iguales.
Dana and the stakeholders.
Ahora Dana nos va a hablar sobre las personas
Okay.
que tienen más, que están más involucrados en el problema. Dana, Billy, diga Dana.
Okay.
Dana.
Easy to remember. Ooh, sorry.
Mire, hay una palabra en inglés que se llama stakeholder. Es una palabra que es muy difícil de traducir al español. Les voy a explicar qué significa. Stakeholders son las personas que tienen más que ganar en una situación, que son las personas que están involucradas en una situación porque tienen algo muy importante que contribuir o que ganar. Eso es un stakeholder. Entonces, están hablando de quiénes son los stakeholders de los diferentes retos que tenemos acá o de las diferentes organizaciones o entidades que pueden colaborarse mutuamente. Bueno, entonces voy a usar la palabra stakeholder, pero eso es lo que significa. Bueno.
Importante. In this book that Nina and I wrote,
En el libro que Nina y yo escribimos,
there is a list of 26
de 26
stakeholders.
stakeholders.
And I would just like if you could just call out una palabra,
Ya digan una
un nombre de
palabra,
stakeholder.
un nombre de una persona que pueden llamar
Okay.
ustedes
Ya una
stakeholder.
persona dijo ICBF, entonces, ¿qué más?
Alguien
Okay.
dijo ICBF. ¿Quién más?
Sí.
Ministerio de Salud.
Ministry of
Salud.
Health, el Ministerio de
Okay.
Salud.
Who else? Families.
Familias.
Hussein.
¿Quién más?
Comunidad,
Comunidad. Community. Educación. School. ¿Sí? Ministry of Health.
Remember this. Remember this. You'll figure out.
Piensen en esto.
y piensen más a nivel regional que a nivel nacional, que en una zona rural, más ¿quiénes son los stakeholders?
O son personas que no están ahorita en una colaboración con ustedes, pero tal vez puede tener interés o una conexión con primera infancia?
Los empresarios.
Como empleadores. Right, employers.
Y los
Empresarios.
And caretakers.
Los cuidadores.
But what about, for example,
Por ejemplo,
physical things?
las cosas
Let's say
físicas.
a group comes together in a rural area and wants to have a center. Who would
Un
they go
grupo
to?
de personas en una
Who
zona
would they
rural
need to
que quieren
influence
hacer un
to
centro
get that
aquí
done if
en
they
Río
could? And
Grande.
then who would influence the
¿Quién
people
influenciaría
who are the decision makers?
a las personas que deben tomar la decisión?
Madres. Those are like
Alguien dijo politician.
politicians. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And who can influence the politicians in this country?
¿Quién influencia a los políticos en este país?
Empresarios.
What about the role of the church?
¿Qué tal el papel de la iglesia?
No?
En Colombia no.
¿Por qué?
Foundations.
Well, I just want to hold on one moment. You say church is not important.
La iglesia no es importante.
Doesn't have that influence.
Doesn't have influence.
Interesting.
Influence over the child development knowledge that their congregations have. That's another thing that has happened in the United States. There was a group a while ago that actually started working with different churches, different denominations, and created some sample sermons that connected the Bible to child or family well-being. In the United States, there are these things, they're called ecumenical councils, groups of many different religions. You don't have that here?
No, en Colombia
Okay, this is
es diferente.
why the church is is very important. I'm sorry. He's on the church? We still on the church?
Say that here we do have the church influence like we have in the United States. You have church in each like zone or a neighborhood where people go on Sunday and it's like something they do every Sunday. Here we don't have that.
So there's one other, let me just say, Nina, there's one other very, very important thing about the United States and churches. More than half of the child care centers in the U.S. are in churches, okay? So the space is not used during the day. They go on Sundays, on the weekends, and there's some classes, but the church is empty. So they use their facilities. It's not a church. It's not a religious program. They're a landlord.
Sobre las iglesias. En los Estados Unidos las iglesias juegan un papel muy importante, no la iglesia católica, las iglesias protestantes y hoy en día muchas evangelistas que están aquí también en Colombia juegan un papel muy importante en cuanto a recibir a los inmigrantes y son ellos que cuando yo hacía mi trabajo a nivel comunitario, mis primeros aliados fueron los pastores adventistas, pastores cristianos, que yo pienso que en Colombia eso es un tema interesante de tratar. Acabamos de ir a un viaje por Boyacá y en muchos de los pueblos que pasamos vi cosas cristianas. Entonces me pregunto, si yo voy a abrir un centro en un pueblo como Ráquira, o aún más aislado que Ráquira, y si hay una iglesita cristiana, yo me acercaría mucho al pastor. O sea, yo siento que eso es algo que hay que empezar a contemplar y a mirar aquí en Colombia. ¿Y por qué no? ¿Por qué la iglesia católica no está más involucrada?
Y el centro que empecé hace 50 años en Vermont, en los Estados Unidos, fue en una iglesia. Pero
Yo también,
la otra
el mío fue en
cosa
una iglesia.
que tienen la oportunidad a usar de muchos de estos recursos es la educación, alianzas, enlace con familias. Y muchas familias no tienen la sabiduría sobre desarrollo de niños. Y es posible en Colombia que unas iglesias pueden dar información a sus miembros. Es posible.
Aquí en
Nosotros trabajamos en una comunidad altamente vulnerable y vemos como las iglesias forman un papel fundamental.
Is this something we have to write down? I don't know what she's saying.
Holístico, que es lo que ustedes enmarcaban, ¿cierto? En la construcción de la niñez, en esa parte de formación de valores, aún de hábitos de vida, y en la parte de formación de escuelas deportivas y pequeños espacios que ellos construyen donde los niños empiezan a interactuar entre ellos y a construir y formar esa parte social. Y lo que no tienen en familia,
what they don't have in the
¿Nos
family,
puedes
they
decir
have
un poquito
in
más
the church.
específicamente dónde es
Thank you.
esto y quién es qué iglesia?
Mira, nosotros trabajamos en Ciudadela Sucre, que queda en la parte alta de Soacha. ¿Sí? Allá hay varias iglesias cristianas que tienen un proyecto y trabajamos también con la Fundación World Vision. Ellos trabajan allá y ellos tienen proyectos, incluso por ejemplo en ese momento hay un proyecto muy importante a la comunidad que es toda la parte de gestión de riesgo, de cuidado, cómo actuar frente a una situación de vulnerabilidad, cómo enfrentarla. Trabajan parte de nutrición, trabajan con niños que tienen dificultades y necesidades de aprendizaje y obviamente hacen un trabajo muy puntual en la formación en valores. Entonces, creo que en esa parte las iglesias, en esa población vulnerable son muy influyentes y forman un papel de acompañamiento muy sentido en esa sociedad.
Gracias. Yo lo que quiero aportar es que sí, las iglesias están muy presentes y no solamente en el sentido de la educación, en los valores, sino en el impacto, y nosotros no lo vemos, pero sí en el impacto en la toma de decisiones. Entonces, hay una fuerza muy importante que influye en la política. Entonces, cuando aquí se intenta tomar una decisión, no sé, que digamos, yo no estoy de acuerdo con algunas decisiones acerca de afectar a la familia o leyes de género, por ejemplo, pero nosotros no nos hemos dado cuenta, pero son las iglesias las que han detenido que eso se penetre en la educación. Entonces el impacto político es más alto de lo que nosotros pensamos.
Nadie ha mencionado el voto. Nadie ha mencionado el voto.
Los partidos.
Estamos en vísperas de una votación. Es muy importante que nosotros al votar pensemos por quién estamos votando con respecto a qué piensa esa persona con los temas que ustedes están tratando de atención al
Y
niño.
si tiene el coraje, puede
Can you help me what they're talking about?
They're talking about the stakeholders, so they're talking about whether or not churches are actual players. She's saying that the church actually plays a very vital role at a very policy level. And then they talked about voting and the
llegué
political.
aquí, a las noticias fue a primera página que 120 organizaciones, creo que en Bogotá, en Colombia, están trabajando juntos con preguntas para candidatos.
¿Y la infancia?
Tiene mucho poder en este
Pero
proceso.
por ejemplo, pensando en comparaciones, en qué puede aprender Colombia de los Estados Unidos, yo siempre digo que la gente cree que los niños son civilizados, los niños no son civilizados, los han civilizado a punta de multas y de cosas fuertes. Entonces, una cosa que lo que fallamos yo creo que en Colombia es que no hay coaliciones de personas trabajando hacia la niñez, entidades privadas formando coaliciones que convocan a los candidatos y les dicen, díganos cuál es su plan de gobierno para los niños. Yo estuve trabajando con dos candidatas en Chía y ninguno había mencionado primera infancia. Entonces yo les metí mi lenguaje de primera infancia en los planes de gobierno de ellas. Una es Sandra Rojas, no sé si tenga chance de ganar, pero el hecho es que qué rol jugamos nosotros como personas de primera infancia para convencer a los sectores de invertir y de trabajar en coaliciones. Las cosas que se han logrado en los Estados Unidos es por esas coaliciones y por esas presiones políticas que han hecho las entidades, la asociación NAYC, que es la Asociación Nacional, the National Association for the Education of Young Children, aparte de lo que ellos hacen desde el punto de vista de hacer una conferencia anual y otorgar la certificación más alta de calidad para los centros de primera infancia, son un monstruo de presión política. Eso es lo que son ellos, más que cualquier otra cosa. Ellos, entonces, esta gente, el presidente de esta asociación se reúne con el Congreso diariamente. O sea, hay ese sistema de lobby que en los Estados Unidos es muy poderoso, y el lobby, la palabra lobby, viene literalmente del lobby de un hotel, porque los políticos entraban y los que les hacían lobby se paraban, los esperaban ahí en el lobby del hotel para presionarlos. De ahí viene la palabra lobbyist, que son las gentes que hacen eso.
Pero, I'm going to interrupt you, forgive me, Dana has two big more things to do.
Yes?
Perdóname, una cosa muy pequeña, y es que la Iglesia Católica sí ha estado, digamos, muy presente y son operadores de primera infancia gigantes en el país. Los únicos que nos operan con dificultad, comunidades, digamos, apartadas como Bichada, como Putumayo y demás, son los vicariatos.
The Catholic Church has
Los vicariatos
really
tienen una
worked
fuerza
very
gigante en la
hard, and
ruralidad,
that they
porque
do a
son
lot of work,
básicamente los que
especially
han
in the
creado una
very
capacidad instalada en la
rural areas,
ruralidad.
very
Y
far
cuando
away
dice que
places.
tiene que buscar quién atienda a los niños en esas zonas,
When they
los
want to
vicariatos es la
find
primera,
somebody that
digamos,
would
son
take
los
care of the
primeros
kids
en
in
atención.
way out,
Ellos
in
manejan
the boondocks, they look for a Catholic Church.
There are some other key stakeholders, yeah?
Colegios privados
Yes.
que
Yes.
también en cierto momento patrocinan cupos, becas e incluso con profesores, envían profesores a distintos lugares o a distintos colegios, o que patrocinan la educación pública o colegios públicos.
Right. Yes.
Las fuerzas militares, la policía,
Muy importante.
What'd you say?
Police and military.
Oh, please. Oh, Una, a very, very beautiful story about police. I was working in a community, and we started focusing on, I don't know if you know here, trauma-informed care. So you know when kids are young and they have a trauma, they've witnessed violence, drug abuse, whatever it is, they grow up and they have problems later. So we were talking to child care providers and parent educators about this, and then someone said, we should talk to the police and help them understand. So the police, the entire police department got trained on trauma-informed care. And now, when they find a child who's gotten into trouble, they don't say, what did you do? What's wrong with you? They say, what happened to you? They start by understanding that maybe what you did was because of something that happened to you when you were an innocent child. So there's many, many roles they can play, but we found one we hadn't expected that was quite beautiful.
There's also a national organization that formed about 15 years ago in the United States called Fight Crime, Invest in Kids. Law
Los
enforcement
militares,
of all kinds. And
policía, van y
they
le
go and
hablan,
lobby.
hacen lobby y le hablan a los congresistas.
And again, most of them are men.
La mayoría
And
son hombres
politicians
y
listen
son
to them.
políticos,
So it's another really great
pero
alliance.
es una alianza muy interesante con la cual logramos
And the
cosas.
other thing is, when you go into a
Cuando
community,
vamos a una
just out of
comunidad
the blue and ask, you
y
have a community
simplemente
meeting and ask
llegamos
people
a la
what they care
comunidad y
about,
preguntamos qué les
number
importa.
one always comes up safety.
La primera cosa
And
es la
so
seguridad.
having police involved,
Entonces teniendo la
it's the
policía
first issue, it might
involucrada
not
es
be
una
the most
cosa muy
important
importante.
one, but it's an
No es
issue
la
that
más
everybody
importante, pero
relates
es una cosa con la cual
Hay
todo el mundo
otra
se
cosa
puede
interesante
relacionar.
con los militares en los Estados Unidos. Las bases militares, que son muy grandes, usualmente viven familias. Entonces ahí, hace muchos años, hace como 15 años, les hicieron una calificación nacional a los centros que operan dentro de las bases militares y salieron como lo peor de lo peor. Y tuvieron una líder, una mujer, que era no me acuerdo, muy alta, una oficial muy alta dentro de este sistema, y ella se propuso y en menos de 5 años dio un vuelco total y ahora son los centros más de mejor calidad fuera de Head Start son los centros que están en las bases militares de los Estados Unidos, que hay bases obviamente allá, pero también por todo el mundo. Entonces ellos tienen un sistema que es un modelo nacional de primera infancia, son los militares en los Estados Unidos.
There are a few more stakeholders. I'd like 3 more I'm thinking about. Somebody said their favorite toy was a book. Who said that? ¿Quién? Sí, okay. So, if book is your favorite, what stakeholder might be important? Biblioteca, right? Sí. In the United States, because of technology, libraries aren't the same place. You don't necessarily go to the library to get a book. You can get it right here, right? So they started thinking of new things they could do in the community. They do parenting programs. They train childcare providers. They have a special children's library so that parents don't need to leave the kids in the house. This is a place they should be supervised, but it's another place in the community for children to learn and to start to love books.
And a project I'm working on right now in Atlanta, Georgia, wanted to know, and we'll call you in a minute, wanted to, they did an amazing thing in Atlanta. They created a child well-being index. And then they looked at every single county in the city and said where are the kids doing well and where are they the most vulnerable, and they picked to start in the most vulnerable communities, and they started a partnership with libraries where anybody in a neighborhood can walk to a library in the counties that they and bring their babies,
y traer sus niñitos chiquitos, sus bebés, la abuelita, la vecina, los empleados. Podían venir a la biblioteca por 2 o 3 horas. Los bibliotecarios podían hacer horas de lectura con los adultos y solo los niños. Entonces hay muchas maneras de que la biblioteca pueda contribuir.
This is another resource. Family place libraries. It's a very specific kind of library. They get licensed by a national group. You go to their website, you will see amazing things that libraries across the United States are doing. Did we put libraries? Yeah, blip it.
That's a consultiva. Les estaba explicando y están fascinadas. No entienden cómo.
Que se encargan de todo.
Es una cosa maravillosa que tiene Colombia.
De ejercicio, de muchas que abarcan muchas cosas, y más que para los niños, para las familias, muy integrales. Adultos y niños.
Con subsidio tiene una red como de 198 centros de primera infancia.
There is one more that I think we can add to the stakeholders, that maybe the nonprofits.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
The number of governments,
Very important.
so they can give care, especially to the public in need.
Yep.
And there's one more I want to add before we get into how do we work with them. And that is something that really shapes public opinion and is where information and data can be shared. The media. Making relationships with journalists so they understand the issues. If they cover it, they know to call you and get the facts right. And that can influence your politicians.
And finding young parent reporters and journalists who are dealing with early childhood
que entienden mejor el asunto.
Acaba de salir en Washington por través de una estación de radio local una serie de unas historias que sacaron una coalición de periodistas que todas son mamás con niños.
Ajá.
Y ellas están bregando con esos temas, entonces de pronto como que les cayó la moneda y fue, pucha, esto es un problema para toda la ciudad. Entonces una serie muy importante sobre el costo de cuidado infantil, quién son las personas que están dando el cuidado infantil, dónde están como de los distintos estratos, cómo acceden a servicios de cuidado infantil en Washington. Fue muy interesante porque fueron periodistas que estaban luchando ellos con estos temas en ese momento. Entonces eso es muy importante, conseguir periodistas aliados que entienden la problemática.
Juntas de acción comunal, juntas de acción
Ah,
local.
sí, claro. These are like local co-ops, like that are from local housing co-ops that are very powerful politically.
They have
Okay, so
They
what's
have facilities, they have buildings.
so what's important
Entonces es importante.
now that you understand there are many, many places to go to find someone who cares about children like you do, or you can convince them that they should care about children the way that you do. So how do you work together? And you have another stakeholder? Or, yeah.
Pues es que analizando lo que ustedes están presentando, están mostrándonos a todos los agentes que de la sociedad civil participan y a veces hacen mejor las cosas que el mismo Estado. A mí me parece que pues como los Boy Scouts o los medios de comunicación, me parece que es importante incluir o las editoriales, que de hecho que son las que trabajan en todo lo que es escribe para los niños y
The people that
la
produce
prevención.
books.
Pero en términos
Publishers.
generales es eso. Y de hecho hace poco tuvimos
And
una
just like the
donde
Boy
estamos
Scouts.
hablando de cómo este papel de la sociedad civil en los programas no formales de desarrollo infantil resulta clave en el proceso de atención a los más pequeños.
Y en los Estados Unidos hay grupos de mujeres líderes, hay women leadership groups. Okay.
So there is, in the United States, we've started to realize we can't do this alone. We have to have the help of all of these stakeholders. Maybe just one to start, but you have to pick your issue. Like we discussed, whether it's immigration or kids home alone, what nutrition. We don't have doctors up here, by the way. What is the issue? And there's a science. It's called collective action. That's the science of how you bring communities together. If you put in collective action, you'll find many, many, many websites. But there's a couple of things that are most important. You need an organization to help organize things, to help bring people to the table, to reach out, to get them interested. But the most important thing is you must engage families. This has to be about what families need, what they want. I've worked too long and too hard, and we thought of a great idea, we got funding, we put the program together, no one came. If we had asked the parents, they might have given us some ideas that would have helped us. And the family, friend, and neighbor care, as we call it, all that informal care where our youngest children are. We say if you want to reach families, you go where they play, where they pray, where they
And get paid.
played and get paid. Forgot the four. But you know, it's a way to think about it. So that I have an idea. They should come to my workshop. No, they're not coming. You have to go where they are. And if you ask them, they'll tell you where to go. Very hard to do. And probably the most important point I can make, something Nina said earlier, and it's what ABC stands for in the US. It's called Asset-Based Community Development. We don't start with the problem, we start with the strengths. What do parents have? They're struggling, they may not have jobs, they may not have this, they got something, they got love for their kids. They've got a big family. We don't know what they have until you ask, but you have to recognize that you have to start from the strengths. One of the things many, many years ago, a colleague of ours, we were working on a parent education program. And she did a whole history of efforts in the United States to do parent education. And the conclusion she reached is that most parent education programs are based on the assumption of parental incompetence.
Están basados en la incompetencia de las...
We're the experts.
Los papás son incompetentes.
They don't know what they're doing. We're the experts. We're going to come in and teach them how to do it. Yes, we do know more. But the fact is, they're there. You can't say that. You can't make them feel that way. You have to dignify their role as parents and work with them.
Have you heard of appreciative inquiry?
¿Saben qué es?
Eso se llama en español
That's it.
indagación apreciativa. Es un marco
There's
teórico
a
de
book.
cambio organizacional.
It's in English. It's
Un
called The
libro.
Thin Book of Appreciative Inquiry.
Un libro chiquito de
¿Cómo? Consultant who discovered that in any meeting or any planning process, if you start with
si
what's
usted
working,
empieza con hablando de lo que está funcionando.
and you want to solve the problem. Usually people start with what's the problem.
Generalmente
Now let's do this.
cuál es el problema, cuáles son los obstáculos, cuáles son los retos. Pero si usted comienza con lo que está funcionando, entonces la gente empieza con una mentalidad muy diferente, porque empezamos de un punto positivo. Entonces voy a escribir ese libro acá. Es muy chiquito y es muy fácil de leer.
So now the question is, what else do we need? And these are the three things I've already talked about. You could do it.
You do it.
Okay. So now the question is, we talked about a few things you need to get going. You talked about getting to parents, make sure they're involved from the very beginning. Someone talked about funding. We need money to do the kinds of things we want. And we talked earlier about media, helping you get the message out. What else do you need to make the case to one of these stakeholders about why they should get involved with early childhood education? What else do you need to feel like you could go?
Desarrollo infantil. ¿Qué es lo que se necesita?
You talked about it a lot. Data. Data. Información.
Could I say something about that?
Datos,
I
información,
stopped using the word data
estadísticas.
because when you say data, people freak out. They think
Cuando la
it means
gente
charts and
oye la
computers and their
palabra
eyes roll
datos,
around in their
entonces se
heads.
paran los pelos.
So it's simple. It's information.
Es
You need the
simplemente
right
información.
information. You don't have to use the fancy words.
Información, no hay que
And
usar
people will be
palabras
more comfortable.
sofisticadas, sino simplemente información.
And sometimes you don't need a big government study to get the data. You can go into a small community and give parents little disposable cameras or their phone and walk around the neighborhood and say, how healthy is our neighborhood? Take pictures of things that are healthy. Take pictures of things that are not so healthy. Let me tell you, I've done this twice. You cannot believe the pictures they take. And we gave them to local policymakers, local legislators, and they were horrified. Families came together and they walked around their own community and they documented what the problems were, what the strengths were. We had a nice park, but look at this garbage. You know, that kind of stuff. So there's simple ways to get information. What else? What else do you need to try to do this work?
¿Qué otra cosa se necesita para comenzar este tipo de trabajo?
Yo quiero resaltar el papel de la universidad y de la investigación. Ahí está la información. Research and university.
The importance of
The universities more?
and the research they do, the knowledge that the professionals acquire.
Yes. And an important part of the research is not just to find out what the problems are. How are programs working? Is what you're doing the job? Is it solving the problems? Evaluation. Evaluation and improvement. And it's a circle. Have you got a program? Is it working? Oh, let's fix this and start again. Very, very important part of programs.
Comunicación.
Communication.
Yes. Communication, absolutely. With each other, with the world, yes. Up and down, bottom up, not so much top down. And both ways, exactly, exactly. Yeah.
Well, I don't know exactly what is the word, but maybe we need to believe.
Believe?
Yeah, we need to believe
Oh, yeah.
this is real.
I got it, yes.
You got it.
No, it's. I will tell you one other story that warms my heart. We were very concerned about the amount of time that children were spending with screens, right? So we created playgrounds that were all natural. And we realized we needed to get the landscape architects, the people who now build playgrounds. And we pulled them together to try to teach them about a new way of building playgrounds with all natural substances and to help children learn more in these spaces. The first thing we learned, we said to these there were 35 landscape architects. How many of you have studied how children play? How children learn? How many? None of them. And I'm thinking, some of these people were 60, 70 years old. They'd been building hundreds of playgrounds and they had no clue how children play and learn. We told them, and they've changed the way they do. It's that simple. It's just opening their eyes to what you know. And they'd be surprised how much it can affect how they go forward in the world after.
We have 5 minutes.
Tenemos 5 minutos
And
más.
so in the last 5
En
minutes,
los últimos 5 minutos
we want to know,
queremos saber,
are you inspired? Are there things you want to do that you can
ustedes han aprendido cosas, les hemos inspirado de alguna manera, cómo están pensando ahora, cómo van a
I want to know, I
pensar de
know
ahora en
Dan wants to know,
adelante,
Pilar wants to know, as you think about this,
cómo
as you
manera que piensan en esto, en estos procesos,
what are you going to do?
¿qué van a hacer?
And
¿Qué es lo
maybe there are
que
ways
piensan que pueden hacer?
With ideas and information, yes. Indudablemente.
Muchas
Sí, bueno.
Inspirador.
Sí,
They were very inspired.
muchas gracias.
Somos una cultura
We have a
muy
culture
rica,
that's
muy
very
diversa,
well, very diverse.
llena de potencial,
We
pero
have a
también
lot
llena
of
de
potential.
necesidades. Y creo que a todos los
I
que,
believe that
todos los que
we
estamos
all
aquí
that are
sentados
here,
ha convocado la pasión y el amor que
so you have
por la-
transmitted the passion and the love that you have for this topic.
Entonces, casualmente, nosotros somos del último semestre
We
de
are
Maestría
in the last
y estamos
semester of this program,
Sandra sobre precisamente este tema.
and we have been speaking about this, how to recognize institutions at a national level, at a local level that work in this
Lo
topic.
que más nos ha movilizado es
What-
tenemos el poder en nuestras manos.
That what I feel is best, more important, that we have the power in our hands.
That's great.
Fortalecido
We have
el trabajo en
strengthened
equipo.
the teamwork, how to collaborate with each other.
La gran inspiración es que
The
esta
great-
maestría
the
tiene
inspiration.
un observatorio, una red
We must create a red network among
que
ourselves,
pueda llegar a
This is great. You got it.
que lleguemos a hacer lobby
that we can do the lobby
en las instituciones que
in the
tienen
institutions that are the stakeholders.
toma decisiones en cuanto a las leyes y las políticas. Esto no se puede quedar aquí.
This cannot be just here, this knowledge. We have to make
Yo les
went
quiero
further.
compartir una cosita. Nosotras desde los Estados Unidos, yo estoy viviendo ahora en Colombia, pero pues yo viví 37 años en los Estados Unidos, con amigas como Nina y muchas otras latinas que están allá, inclusive en puestos bastante importantes, estamos tratando de crear una nueva red hemisférica que se llama Luna, Latinas Unidas por los Niños de América. Hoy es nuestro primer evento, queríamos hacerlo live, pero lo estamos grabando. Ya tenemos un Facebook, estamos a punto de lanzar la página web y la idea que queremos hacer es tener webinarios, blogs de video y eventualmente queremos empezar a desarrollar entrenamientos por los cuales ustedes puedan recibir algún tipo de crédito. Estoy tratando de crear alguna alianza aquí con Sabana.
Y también
pero
tenemos sueños, porque yo vivo en Ecuador y mi hija es de Perú y Pilar y yo tenemos sueños de conferencias entre los diferentes países y intercambios. Y yo tengo una colega en la Universidad de Nueva México en los Estados Unidos y antes de mi viaje aquí ella me dijo que quiere compartir investigaciones tal vez como un intercambio con investigaciones en los Estados Unidos y aquí, calidad, a todos sujetos.
A través de Luna
Sí.
queremos tener un diálogo a un nivel multinivel, es decir, queremos tener conversaciones a nivel de política y a nivel como de sectores y cosas a nivel de investigación, pero también no queremos irnos por las nubes y no aterrizar. Queremos también tener charlas y escritos, lo que ustedes también nos puedan compartir nos parecería genial para la base, para aquellas maestras que están en las trincheras. No se trata de hacer una cosa la idea es llegarles a ellas, entonces queremos que sea como un esfuerzo bilingüe, un esfuerzo hemisférico, como les digo. Estamos apenas arrancando, estamos empezando a pedir presentaciones, si alguna de ustedes quiere presentar su tesis o su proyecto, lo que estén haciendo a nivel de base, nos parecería, queremos hacer como una vez al mes, mostrar a alguien que está trabajando en primera infancia. El primer grupo que vamos a convocar es un grupo en Medellín, que está haciendo un trabajo con madres comunitarias, pero queremos mostrar latinas en los Estados Unidos, latinas en Chile, latinas, o sea, la idea es que nos empecemos a comunicar y a compartir información. A mí me parece que Colombia tiene mucho que ofrecerle a Latinoamérica en general, y pues ustedes saben que Colombia está como en Latinoamérica, somos entre Chile y Colombia, estamos como liderando primera infancia, así que tenemos mucho de qué hablar. Si alguien está interesada en ser voluntario y trabajar con nosotros en este grupo que está aplicando, nos parecería delicioso. Somos 4 y lo que digamos nos está diferenciando, lo que queremos ser, que sea diferente a otros grupos, pero que no sé si existen o no existen, es apalancar la tecnología. O sea, es decir, queremos usar tecnología para movilizar información y para que la gente tenga más información. No solamente a nivel universitario, como les digo, sino a nivel de base. Entonces las invito a que visiten, está en construcción, no está terminada, me matan mis amigas si saben que les estoy dando, pero es que quiero que empiecen a mirar un poco qué es lo que estamos tratando de hacer y que empiecen a unirse a las personas que estén interesadas, o los que estén interesados.
Sí, los latinos también pueden.
Bueno, muchísimas gracias, yo creo que salimos de energías, de ganas, de ilusión. Muy agradecido, yo creo, por haber tenido la posibilidad de tener este espacio. Creo que todo muy enriquecido de este intercambio mutuo. Entonces yo sin más ya creo que agradecerles mucho e invitarles ahorita a un pequeño refrigerio. Y no sé si quería completar alguna cosa más.
No, I'm good.
Muchísimas gracias.